Welcome back, and hello if you are new. It's been 13 years where the band have been teasing new material, potential collaborations, so much so that it's become, like the center of memes. And really, it almost became like an event in itself that this album was ever going to happen. But a couple of years ago, the word on the grapevine was that the band had started work on the album, and last year they were actually in the studio. There was concrete information that this is real. There is going to be a new Tool album. The band updated their website, and the prog world collectively lost their minds. They also announced a string of tour dates, which probably most importantly ended with one date, August 30th, 2019. And that was when we would get Fear Inoculum. Tool create a strange composite of songs where they are instantly recognizable, but also somewhat forgettable. And for me, that alludes to the song being almost a journey. And this journey, I know it sounds like pretty highbrow and a bit wishy-washy, but each journey for me never really feels the same, and I feel that's why I've returned to Tool's music so much. What Fear Inoculum truly succeeds at is creating a story, and for me, the album bridges the gap between 10,000 Days and Lateralis. But it doesn't just bridge the gap, it creates a new sound for the band as well, and there are multiple different reasons for this, which I'll get into a little bit later. I think the most perfect example is the preamble of the title track, Fear Inoculum. Now, put this into perspective, you've been waiting 13 years to hear any new music, and this is the first official song on Fear Inoculum, and it instantly opens that gateway into Tool, and yet allows you to go somewhere which is familiar and where you did expect to go, but also brings you into a slightly newer sound at the same time, without giving too much away. It also allows for the album to have its own identity moving forward, but sound very much like what we would expect from Tool. With that in mind, Tool band members have become just as iconic as the band as a whole, and so I thought it'd be interesting to break down each individual member and what they bring to Fear Inoculum in the overall Tool sound. Maynard's vocals may not necessarily be there all the time, but they weave in and out of the record and really create a thread to this very, very large and broad tapestry that we've got on Fear Inoculum. His tonality is soothing when it's needed, like for example the introduction of Invincible, but then has that signature power that, only Maynard can really conjure up. It's very much those sporadic moments where he does come in and really bring the band together. Though I have to say, Danny Carey on this album, the drummer, if you're not familiar with him, is absolutely sensational. Every hit on Danny Carey's drum kit sounds thought out and deliberate, and the bass pedal very much carries the rhythmic heartbeat of the band, I feel. Slowly but surely building with that sort of boop 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 and sound of toms and things like that. But for me, what really kind of enhances the idea of the kit is its sound, but most importantly, due to the production, give it some clarity. If there was any question about Danny Carey's ability behind the kit, this is swiftly dispelled with the muscle flex that is Chocolate Chip Trip. On this track, Carey quite rightly proves that he is one of the best drummers in the world, with one of the most inspired drum solos, which starts out of these electronics which basically sound like R2-D2 went on a DMT trip and never really came back. Then there's of course Justin Chancellor's bass, which has that signature lead piping echo sound, which for me often really starts to create the body that we see in the overall sound of Tool. And these embryonic melodies where at first there was space, but then slowly, because of that sound of the bass and because of the presence of it, it really does build up this body that I'm talking about. Adam Jones is perhaps the masterstroke on this record, with, many of his riffs slowly but surely evolving. It's all about those subtle nuances and capturing them. I also think that the way that this guitarist plays means that Adam Jones, and only Adam Jones, will ever be able to play this feel. And that is really where I think Tool's essence begins to kind of like culminate. Now, returning to the idea of the band's sound, it might sound a little bit lofty saying this, but I really do feel that the fact that Tool have never compromised, they've never bowed to any trends or anything that might influence their sound. And for me, that truly does make their sound timeless. So I've struggled previously with the interludes on Tool albums. I've found them kind of unnecessary and, just a bit of filler. But for me, I feel that the interludes on this record really do make sense. They keep you in this antagonistic headspace that the band are in, but allow for a sense of rest after, concentrating on something which may have been a 10-minute track, where there's lots of different things going on, lots of little nuances, whereas you can kind of take a step back and just kind of breathe. Fear Inoculum is also a master at tension and release. So following the final section of Descending, we're then moved into Culling Voices. And it's this kind of peaks and troughs of going from something really climactic and very high energy to right back down. And it makes it feel almost as though it's one kinetic track that lasts 80 minutes. But with this in mind, this sense of pace and flow is seen perfectly on the album's climax, which is Tempest. The track itself is probably the heaviest song on the album, but it's all of this work that's been building up to this one song where this huge release comes through, and it's about 15 minutes long, but if you persevere with it, it really molds into something that is unlike any other band. I also love the fact that there are small Easter eggs in this album. If you've been reading about the band, you'll know that the concept of 7 was very much prevalent in the writing of Fear Inoculum. So on Tempest, or 7 Empest, I realised that Maynard's syllables are actually in 7s right near the end of the album. Thankfully, the 13-year wait has been so worth it. There is so much you can get out of Fear Inoculum, and I've listened to the album probably in about the 30 times now. It came out when I was on my honeymoon, so I wanted to make sure that I'd listened to it and really given it the time to kind of sink in and really understand what this record is about. Where the band go from here is anyone's guess. They've done the record which fans expected of them, but I feel that with the next album, there needs to be a little bit more evolution in Tool's sound. But for me, this is an absolutely sensational album. I cannot fault it. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this album review. It took me a little bit of a while, and I know you guys have been asking for it, but I really wanted to do it justice. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to check out all my other interviews, videos, album reviews, all sorts of good stuff. Let me know what you think of Tool's Fear Inoculum and the crazy price tag of £80 for a CD. But either way, I'd always love to chat with you, and I will see you guys next week for another album review. Alright, take care, friends.